Because when you deny yourself, you create a block. And you don't give yourself that way of moving forward. You keep getting stuck and stuck and stuck until you finally learn the lesson.
Welcome back to another episode of Voices of the Goddess, where brilliant women come to take a break from their successful and sometimes overwhelming lives to level up, live free, and create abundance.
If your hectic life has you feeling a bit lost, if you're building your career, brand, or business, or if you simply want to get the most out of life, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Julietta Wenzel, founder of Body and Soul PT and Soul Candy.
And I'm your co-host, Graciela Laurent, professional portrait photographer specializing in boudoir and personal branding.
Whether you're relaxing with a cup of coffee or running around town, we've got you.
Whatever you're doing, thanks for bringing us along and sharing a laugh.
Here comes the magic.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
That may have recorded and it may not have recorded. We don't know.
You know what? Like you said, I get to be my authentic self. My authentic self goes a little fast. It's okay.
Your authentic self is fast. Mine is slow. We are the tortoise and the hare here.
You know, and then the thing for me is like I'll go super fast and then I'll just pass out. And then I'll be like, okay.
Exactly what happened to the hare. And you know how that story ended.
You see? Well, let's see. On Friday, I took an overnight flight. So I woke up like at 5 that day, and then my flight wasn't until 11:30 p.m. and then it was overnight. So I landed the next day at 9:30 in the morning. And then from there, I had a full day. So by 6 o'clock in the evening, like never mind all the time zones. The point is it was a really long time. I still can't do the math on it. I was awake for a really long time. So I went to sleep here at home in my bed, which is like the best ever, at 6 o'clock, and I woke up at 9 o'clock the next day. Like, I don't even think my body moved in the middle of the night. Like, it was a hard sleep. So yeah.
Those hard sleeps can be good. Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
I'm curious in your traveling, because I know you are a fan of rituals. Were you able to maintain your ritual practice as you were traveling?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I realized that my ADHD brain cost me physically a lot of money. Like, I have no, like, it's just, anyway. So I bought this like super cute, like portable tea kettle kind of a thing. It looks like a water bottle, but it just heats up like just enough water. So I was like, oh, I'll take that. And then when I get to the hotel, because I brought my cacao with me, of course. And then I was like, well, I don't want to take too much, so I'll buy maple syrup and cinnamon and cayenne. I'll buy it all when I get there. Well, I was having this thought while I was considering going with just a carry-on. But then at the last minute, I was like, I cannot, like this carry-on is so densely packed. I can't buy so much as a pencil. So I'm going to have to just take a big bag. So I took a big bag, and then like a fool, I didn't pack all those things. So then when I got there, I bought it all. And then, of course, I brought it back with me. So it was like, I don't know, like this is the ADHD tax. Like I waste so much money overthinking shit. But I did find really nice ways of doing my little rituals. Like, honestly, like it grounded me every morning, you know, because I had my cacao time and I had my breakfast time and I did my little affirmations and you know, my whole little routine. And it feels really good. You know, like I keep saying, I'm going to put together a little like ritual course, like how to make a ritual when you're short on time, you know, but it was really good.
Yeah. I mean, rituals can be as long or as short as you want them to be. They don't necessarily, I think sometimes we think that a ritual has to be really elaborate and complicated and take time. But I mean, you can have a ritual that lasts like 5 seconds if you want.
Well, and we were talking the other day, you came up with one where you were like, we were saying like when you get in the car and you put your seatbelt on, what did you say? Like, I am safe and secure.
Yeah.
Right. Or like if you're at a red light, like say whatever affirmation, you know, I have all the time I need. I get to places how I'm supposed to. Right. So even those little rituals for me, they help. They make me feel better, you know, and if you don't have time for a 2-hour ritual, but you got 30 seconds, I know you do because you stop at red lights at South Florida here anyway.
Hopefully they do anyway.
Right? Stop at the light.
I've seen some drivers down here, and I think they think the red light is optional. But
Right. But like, don't get on your phone. Don't check Facebook. Like, take a minute to breathe, you know? I've actually started playing particular. So I have a playlist that goes with my cacao time as well, which really helps me like drop into the ritual much quicker because my brain is like, oh, we're doing this now. Boom. Like, and I'm there. I don't have to like do the whole thing to get myself there, you know?
So do you always play the same songs in the same order?
It depends on what my intention is for that day. So like if I want to be more calm, then I'll play, like I always have an opening song, and then the next two songs kind of depend on what I need to create. If I need to create something, then I play more of like a drumming thing that kind of gets the chi going, you know? And if I want to chill out and just receive a little bit more, then I have a different one. So it's been really cool. It's been great experimenting, and you know, I'm trying it out on my kids, trying to wake them up to different sounds and different music. And, you know, I don't know, it'll be the world's greatest experiment. See what happens.
No, that's cool. Just only because I have like a Pandora station that I always play. But so sometimes I get the same songs, but sometimes I get different songs. But that's a thought that maybe it's time to create a playlist.
Well, and I'm happy to share my playlist with you. You know, I use YouTube. And part of it is also like, you know, we're hosting a big cacao night here at the studio later on this year. And part of it is also me figuring out what songs feel good and what songs like move me further along the path, because I want to share that with everybody. Like, you know, we talked about what I get out of my cacao time. I cannot overemphasize what an incredible experience it is. It sounds ridiculous, but it is absolutely true. I'm not exaggerating, which is exciting for me as a Latin woman.
All right. Shall we bring on speaking of cacao ceremonies, shall we bring on our guests?
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for having me on board.
We are so happy you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
She always looks like sunshine, doesn't she?
Yes.
Like her skin is always glowing. She looks well hydrated. I'm over here looking like a cactus.
Oh, come on. Stop it.
You just came out of the out of the desert.
Exactly.
I'm sure the weather had a lot to do with, you know, our skins. Even though here we got a lot of humidity.
Yeah.
We have to hydrate like crazy.
It's always with the hydrate. But anyways, we know you, Kamala Ingrid. We know you really well. And she's been to the studio a bunch of times, and she's led a bunch of courses here. But let's tell everybody who you are. Give yourself a little introduction and tell folks what you're passionate about and what keeps you passionate.
Well, again, thank you for joining, you know, letting me be on the show. And I've been practicing, teaching yoga for over 26 years now. Practicing since I was 11. So, and never knew that this would be my life path. But eventually I have a degree in graphic design, and here I am. And let that go and went into this. And I have learned so much throughout those years about people, about myself, and it's all about healing. It all goes back to as a child about how to heal myself. And that was something that led me into the path of healing others in emotional, through the frequency of moving body, movement, sound, energy, and breath work, basically. So it's something I integrate through yoga, through myofascial release as well. I also integrated through breath work, which you girls have had the privilege to do that, and also sound, where you can hear it through the headphones, and it hands from one ear to the other through a hypnosis form of guiding you through. One of the experiences before I move forward is when I started breath work many moons ago. They guide you through it, but they don't, you know, it's just the guiding of the breath. But when people release emotions, there was nothing being done. And then I started taking other facilitators, and they would just let you sit there and lay there, and nothing was being done with a person. And so that's kind of led me into really working with them on a smaller group level to really have each one goes through a different emotion. Each one is going through something different, and it changes every single time they come in and participate. So until they learn to understand those emotions, until they learn to let go, then they become more, bring more awareness into like understanding. It's no different than when you go to plant medicine and you understand the plant. Then the messages are completely different from someone that's coming in through a trauma-induced, issue. So if they're not understanding how to release it, it can be stuck and you could be dealing with the same thing over and over and over with no end or cause. But if you have someone that can teach you or guide you through those emotions, you can release them like that. And then the next time you go through it or you have a trigger, it won't trigger you anymore. And so we're meant to release instantly, but we hold on to the thought of whatever it was on that trigger. And that's the part of where I come along and coach you through it. So that's kind of what led me into this whole world of doing this. And of course, I heard you talk about rituals, and rituals can be very important when you're doing this kind of work, just to get them into a habit in order to break a pattern. So sometimes those habits help you break on whether it's a habitual pattern that you're having that you are just so onto that you create small little patterns to keep doing it. And I always suggest a 60-day kind of thing for when it's something intense. Smaller ones, you can do it for 21 days, but then you can change them around if you get bored, because some people, I heard you saying you're ADD, I'm the same way. So I like to make little changes here and there to just keep it alive. So.
Well, and I love how, like for people that this sounds good to them, but maybe they're a little scared, like what exactly is this like, that your classes are so easy to drop into, right? Like no experience necessary. You don't need to know any of the lingo. All you literally have to be able to do is breathe. Like if you can breathe, check, you've now met the requirement, right?
You'll be surprised how many people cannot breathe. I have come across a few that if I guide them or they fall asleep on you. So I suggest usually when they're beginners the beauty about this class, you can do it in the comfort of your own home. You can do this work with me via Zoom as well. And they also are listening on their own headphones. Everybody has a headphone, so they can put on the headphones and they can be coached through the process of the breathing. The good thing is that I have it set up in a way where now live, you're with me, so it's different. But on the line, you have the power of listening to the breath while I'm also talking at the same time. So it keeps you in that motion of breathing. So for those that kind of are not very good with breathing and they're very shallow and they breathe very shallow and they don't know, or they fall asleep on you because they tune out that quick, this keeps them going. And it actually works. And that's kind of like why I kind of went that route versus the live. It's different because I can't be breathing and talking at the same time and hands-on. So it's a little bit more kind of set back, a little bit laid back, but the ones online are more one-on-one and intense. You can take them to that level.
Can you talk a little bit about what kinds of people would benefit from doing breath work?
Everybody. I mean, you got from all ages, people with anxiety, people with ADHD, as well, because it's about focus and centeredness, and each breath is different. Each one has a different effect on you. If you want to open up for those that are wanting to be more in tune with their spirituality, there's a different type of breathing that you can take to tap into the third eye, and that's a condition too of how to release that. There's a type of breath work that you do for that. If you just want to release trauma, then there's another type of breath work. So there's so many kinds, and it just depends. If you just want to sleep and relax, there's another type of breath work you do for that. So there's so many kinds. So anybody is really open and able to do this. Just depends on what they're looking for.
I found it so interesting that there are so many different types of breath work. Like it shouldn't come as a surprise, but it is really interesting to know that like your intention plays such a big part of your experience, right?
Right.
And we talk about, even what is setting an intention, right? What does that mean? Like, couldn't you just show up and be like, oh, I don't know, what happens? Or would you have a more powerful experience if you're like, this is what I'd like to get out of it? And then how does that show up?
Yeah, because when you set the intentions, you're throwing the energy out there. Remember, it all starts with mind. So your thought goes into, you voice it out, and then you turn into action. So it's like when you put your mind and you speak what it is that you are intending to create, you will then manifest it into action. So it's always important. If you just go in without even understanding what you're going in for, it's, you know, you can be in so many different places, not knowing really what you want. And we have people like that too. But it's always good to, like, even if you don't know what it is that you want, the fact that you set the intention to source, the higher creator, or whatever you want to call it, God, however you want, or whatever you believe, just say, help me find my own intention to my life purpose. The information will come to you at some point, because we are built with that knowledge. We've been here many times in our lives that we know deep inside that you just got to be open to receiving that information. And it may come into you through, maybe your friend said something that resonated in you, or maybe you opened a book and you found it through there and you're like, oh, I like that. Or maybe you dreamt that night and you had this aha dream and you're like, oh, that sounds good to me. I like that feeling. So it comes to you in many ways, but you just have to be open to receiving that information.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because so many people think like they're going to hear this voice in their head that's going to tell them the exact message that they received to hear. And then they get frustrated that Spirit's not communicating with me because I didn't hear the message I was supposed to hear.
Yeah.
But Spirit communicates with us in so many different ways.
Languages. Yeah, it's just so many different.
Open.
And I think that what happens is when you're starting for the first time, and I say that because, myself, we've all been there. How do we get this information without realizing we're there already? But, you just don't know because you don't, either A, your parents didn't know this and you weren't taught that, which is most of the case with our generation. And nowadays, I think our children today are more in tune with the spirituality from what I see, because I think we're more open to this kind of world. But I remember growing up, none of this was like almost taboo. To say you were spiritual, you were considered like, what is she, And it was almost like a hush hush thing that you couldn't really say what your gifts. You couldn't say you work with energy. You couldn't say because they looked at you as a,
you're a witch, let's burn you at the stake.
Yeah, or if even yoga, I remember there was, what is that, a cult? No.
So I have to share, Juliet, I have to share a funny story that happened between me and Ingrid, which is, I have always said to, like, we're at this stage of life where people have had multiple careers. And I always ask the question, oh, what were you in your previous life, right? So like for me, I used to be an English teacher. I was in the legal field for a while. So I asked Ingrid, oh, what were you in your previous life? And she's like, whew. Well, let's see. I've been a shaman. I've been this. And I'm like, what? Like already? And she's like, oh, no. Like my real previous lives. You mean like my metaphorical lives? Like in this lifetime? I'm like,
I'm thinking she's talking about past lives.
I'm like, only in the studio do we get confused with which previous life do you mean? The real previous life or the metaphoric previous life within this lifetime? Like, what are these layers?
Well, you gotta say, Graciela, you girls are like my type of people to talk to. So for me, when I have a conversation with you girls, it's gonna be something about my past life. If I talk to my other friends that are not like this, that are not in this kind of spiritual realm category, I will say, I know that they're talking about this life.
Right. Well, which leads me to my next question, because you mentioned earlier that you were in graphic design, and I know you have had a lifelong experience with this realm, but surely you must have had to overcome some limiting beliefs yourself, right? Like I know there is a lot of people that feel things and then they're not sure about, is it or isn't it, or am I good enough, or am I really this person, right? Like, what limiting beliefs did you have that you had to overcome to really step into your abilities today?
I had a lot, because on top of I come from a Hispanic family that also came here very young. So when they came here young, they still kept those old beliefs. And so they never adapted to that. You had to adapt to their needs of what they grew. And I'm like, so delegating with that was some of the stuff I had to deal with, and then on top of that, finding out some of these healing abilities or these, being able to astral travel at a very young age, but not knowing how or why, or being able to feel I was comfortable enough to say something to my parents at all about it, because they'd look at me like, what's wrong with you? So it's like I really never felt like I connected with even the people that were my age. I always felt like I had to connect with someone that was older. And even with those that were older, they were not even in alignment to me. So I always felt so left out. And that was very difficult for me growing up, because I just felt like, I don't know, what the heck am I supposed to be doing here? And I had a lot of like experiences through the astral travel that I didn't even know how and who to talk to. So I journaled a lot of stuff down at that time. And until I got into yoga, did I see a lot of the answers there. But I still kept them to myself until I then did teacher training in my later years. I think I was 26 when I started the teacher training program. And I ended up getting Dharma Mitri was my Guruji that I loved, and he was very, very knowledgeable, old school, and I loved the way he just taught. So I remember sitting next to him and talking to him about some experiences. I had an out of body experience, and why, I thought I was dying and sick. And he goes, he would grab my head, oh, my child. And he's very sweet. And he was like, no, you actually doing a lot of astral travel, and you just got to be careful because you could stay. And I said, well, I know the feeling of being out. I don't want to come back. And he goes, yes, but in this life you'd be dead. So it's like, you really have to learn to ground and all that stuff. And then I started learning a little bit more about that. I spoke to my father, I want to say in my late 20s about it, that I had a experience. And I was shocked for the first time that he knew about the whole quantum physics and everything. And he was like, yeah. And I was, wait, you knew this and all this time and you never talked to me about it?
Wow.
And that was my first aha moment. But then I want to say after my divorce in my early 30s, all up until then, to my 30s and 40s, I want to say in those 2 decades, I did a lot of healing about chakras, a lot of healing for myself, about also like released a lot of trauma stuff. I even learned about between the breath work and what was the difference between the breath work to plant medicine. So then finding out that there's just different modalities of doing it, you still can release and still get the same experience in all different ways, and so that's what led me into the whole holistic background. And when I started doing the work for myself and how I can bring other people to enlightenment on their traumas and how to release them, even if they're at karmic level. So when I work with the karmic, I can tap into that person that I'm working with and automatically feel where their blockages are set. I can automatically know if it's mother or father. And I dive into it with them through whatever's channeling at the moment and telling me what I need to tell them. And then it's just something that happens. And then once I come out of it, they can spend with me 3 to 4 hours with me in that situation. It's intense. And then after that, they find themselves completely in like loving their path. They're clear. They're finding a lot of things. And so I'm always kind of trying to bring different modalities. It's all about raising your frequency. That's what I've been all about. How do I elevate you out of the area that you're gray in and bring you into that more colorful, authentic side of you? So it's been, but my main one was my main issue was I wasn't, because I dealt with a lot of 3D people, I felt like I didn't feel I was good enough.
Sure.
That was one of I felt like I always had to, because I did this type of line of work and I chose to be more independent this way, it was almost like a lot of people with titles, degrees and things like that would see me as like, yeah, whatever, and not take me serious. And I found myself like that, felt, even though I didn't care about it, but at the same time I felt left out again, like a child, like I felt like that was still lingering with me as I got older, but with a different crowd now,
Well, whatever we don't address keeps showing up, right? Until it gets addressed. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
And then it took me to really I think what brought me to light was when I decided to let everybody know what I really did, especially now in social media where you put your title. Yes, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is what you want to call me. yes, yes, I'm a witch. If you want to call me a witch, yes, I am. Whatever it is that you want to go, I'm like, yes, that's what I do. And when the moment I said that, oh my God, it's incredible how your gifts just come pouring out of you, because it's almost like the universe saying you finally got it, and all the stuff just starts manifesting before your eyes. Because when you deny yourself, you create a block, and you don't give yourself that way of moving forward. You keep getting stuck and stuck and stuck until you finally learn the lesson. My lesson was to accept myself for what I do and what I am, and I can care less of what everybody says. It's about me. I'm the one that's living this life. And the moment I did that, all doors open.
Yeah, that's why we're so passionate here on the podcast about supporting women in stepping into their authentic self and loving themselves for who they are, whatever that is. And and it is interesting how the more and more in alignment you get with your authentic self, the easier life becomes.
Absolutely.
When you're not your authentic self, you're always in resistance, and it just makes life harder. So
no, it's true, because for me, I'm here to speak and show light. It's something I know that in my past life, all my past life, I've been one to show the light. This has been my mission in every life I've had. And even when my teachers open it, they check it, and it's the same path. I was like, yeah, it's all about me opening and showing that light of healing light. And so it's like, I'm here again doing it. And I'm like, okay, why am I holding on to all these traumatic scenarios? Or most of mine have been also passed down from generational trauma, generational stuff. So once I started realizing what was holding me back and working that into that one, and a lot had to do with the feminine side, which is what we're kind of awakening now, the feminine side. But mine, every time I would go to a healer, or something happened with me in the past, and they would say, you have a problem with the feminine, with your mother. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm okay with my mom. It's like, no, I don't. Because I didn't realize they were talking about generational trauma, where the women weren't heard, where the women weren't seen, where the women couldn't, express themselves in such a way that they were just there in the background. And I had no idea till after I started digging into some healing ability with a friend of mine that was helping me through a process that I had to heal on myself. And when I did, in those 2 visits that I had, it clicked. It was like the information was there, and I was like, this is what they've been telling me all these years, all about this. And like, that's what they meant about it's a generational trauma. So once I learned that, I went and cut that to the cord, and then ended that. So I was like, okay, this is good. So moving forward, not that I'm having any kids anymore, but that's it. This lineage has been healed,
Beautiful.
So we are putting together a library for the goddesses, and I'm curious to know, what book would you like to add to our library, and why?
I say frequency.
Is that the name of the book? Frequency?
No, I say if you're asking me what would you name a book, or what
No. What book do you recommend?
To the library?
No. I got to create that book. That's going to be my book in the future. You know what? The one that I like is let me think about it. Hold on, because I have the book in my head right now. Eastern, Western. Give me 1 second now. Definitely, because I know the book, and it's a great book because it talks about Eastern medicine and Western medicine. It looks at it with the eyes of the psychologist, with also
Eastern Body, Western Mind.
Yes, that one with the lotus on it, a pink lotus in it. That's the one, definitely. I recommend that, and that was also one of my teacher training books when I would teach, because it's about the chakras. It is so important. And when you look at the psychology of how people stand, or where their pain is, or what is happening, you can see it easily through that book. You can understand where they're stuck, where they're not letting go, what chakra is being harbored, and at what age it started. So if you want to work on a trauma, and if you're not able to read a certain chapter, then you know that's the chapter you need to focus on, because it's speaking to you and you're denying it. So I always say, whenever you ever go in a seminar and you're sitting and somebody walks off, decides to go to the bathroom at that time, that's the topic. That's how I know people. So it's like, that's that energy that they're not ready to deal with that energy yet. They're not ready to open that up. But this book is very in depth, and it talks about it in such a way that you get to see it even in Jungian's point of view versus Freud. At the same time, it is brought in through different psychologists. I think there's 5 different ones that they are talking about how they see and where the trauma stems. If it's a mother, if it's young, then you know if it's mother or father, and what happens to you as you develop into an adult. What are some of the symptoms or some of the addictions you will get from that, emotionally or physically through them. And so you will learn how to basically break them through that book. So that was one of my main books to have, and when I was doing the teacher training for the chakra system, is the best one. So definitely add it to your library, and you will read it over and over again. You will never get bored because you'll find something new.
That's beautiful. This has been so much more than I ever expected in a podcast, and we could definitely do it all day. But I want to ask you if you have one golden nugget, one piece of advice, one takeaway that if folks just can take one thing away from this podcast today, what would that be?
Just not to, like, especially when people want to, if you want to really know truly who you are, take time to sit outside in nature and really hone in. Even if you don't know what it is, listen to a nice music, acoustic sound. Sit down with that and just set an intention for yourself. Just one simple intention. Place that music, sit outside, give yourself 10 minutes. Everybody has 10 minutes. Plant your feet on the ground, on the earth. We need to be very grounded and connect ourselves with Gaia and just feel that energy like surrounding you, hugging you, protecting you. And the message will come to you, whatever that may be. Everybody's messages are different. So sit outside in nature and really hone into that and get out of the social, the phones and all that stuff. Try to get out, declare yourself from noise and really go inward. Listen to your own sound, your own breathing, your own frequencies. Just elevate yourself on a day-to-day basis. Because every day is going to be a challenge. Every day you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have your good days. You're going to have your bad days. On your bad days, spend more time in nature. And if you don't have the ability to because it's too cold or whatever, just then create it. Put a nice sound, sit down and create a little space at home that you could create, that you could call it sacred, your sacred space.
Beautiful.
And whatever ritual you have. Yeah, just create that space. It's only 10 minutes is all you need. Your body needs nice 5 deep breaths, but I say 10, and you go into that parasympathetic system. You start targeting that, and you're not in that flight and fight mode anymore. And you come out of your head, and you go right into grounding. And that's all you need. To spend 10 minutes a day, taking nice, slow, deep breaths, listen to music, and even if nothing comes up, let it be.
Yeah. Even at a worst case scenario, you get 10 quiet minutes in your day, and that's new and exciting.
and it's a lot. It's a lot. And also, I recommend set the intention with your food because it's medicine. It's what you eat. It's how you feel. So if you set the intention with yourself, also do the same with your food, because that you will be attracted to what is good for your body. Your body is a temple, so you want to be able to do the same thing. Just listen to it. It tells you,
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Kamala. This has been a great show, and looking forward to the next breathwork class.
Yes.
And hopefully some of our listeners will join us there.
All righty. Thank you.
And don't forget to connect in the Circle of Goddesses Facebook group. Kamala Ingrid can be in there and answer any questions you might have as well. It's a great way to connect. Obviously, in the show notes, we've got all the links. So please join us, be a part of our community. We'd love to get to know you.
I love you, Goddesses. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a magical day, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today and keeping us in the top 10% of podcasts in the world. Ask us how you can promote your business on this podcast as a sponsor, and make sure you check out the show notes for details on how to get in touch with Julieta, Graciela, or today's special guest.
We're sending you lots of love and gratitude. Have a magical day.